and my computer room. I'd like to tell you a story that would justify over 500,000 cases in Howard County Circuit Court being overturned because of the infraction of law committed against me by both judges, prosecutors, police officers, and social workers. My story starts in 1969 when I met a woman that I loved. In 1970, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl due to a rape at her father's farmhouse. The girl was all Vietnamese. I had my parents send food, diapers, and everything. It was basically kind of like the first family I ever had, because my mom and dad wasn't really a family. I helped raise this girl, change her diapers, everything. Then I was sent home in July of '71. After fighting the government of Vietnam, America, and the U.S. military, I was able to go back as the only civilian to travel to Vietnam that was not connected with news, defense, or the military. Just totally as a tourist. I was able to secure the needed passports for my wife, but my plane ticket I'd bought previously had gone way up, and when my father-in-law said that we could not bring the daughter until we had jobs and a home for her, my wife said, "I'm sorry, but my father's the boss." So I cashed in the daughter's ticket, which didn't even pay for my wife's ticket. I had to have my father go to Pan Am and pay additional money for my wife. I brought my wife home. In 1975, I just found out my daughter accidentally died during the invasion of the North Vietnamese taking over South Vietnam. It was an act of war. It wasn't on purpose or anything. But my brother-in-law kept her alive, so we keep sending support money and he could live high on the hog. In 1985, the paperwork was done to bring my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and their 2 kids and my wife's daughter to America. She was supposed to be 15 at the time. We got a bunch of nasty letters stating that she didn't want to come, she hated us, etc. We had told people she was adopted because my wife was embarrassed. The family in Vietnam told us that they had told this young woman that her real mother was a Viet Cong, a sister of my wife, which was a lie, to get her benefits from the Vietnam government. I arranged the paperwork with immigration that my brother-in-law could not come until he brought the daughter with him. If she didn't come, he couldn't come. He was outraged and was very nasty in letters to us also that he couldn't force her to come. I said, well, then you can't come. So they showed up at the airport. If you're worried about Ebola now, the government health department and immigration knew these people had positive TB tests. They also had a very contagious, deadly stomach virus that needed to be treated immediately and never warned us about it. For months we didn't know about the TB, but we knew about the virus because they were throwing up, coughing with fever, so I immediately had to take 5 of them to the doctor. The girl was outrageous in our home, cussing my wife, refusing to talk to us, saying blue eyes were devils. I forced her to go to school. She told me she already finished high school. At 15, you didn't finish high school in Vietnam.
What you want to do now?
So, and when I forced her to go to school, of course, Howard County, did your parents abuse you? Did your parents do anything to you? We'll put you in a nice home. She said I abused her. They immediately started questioning me, etc., about abuse. Because they'd had a report before by my sister that I beat up my wife and daughter in '81, which was dismissed unfounded. But it was still a report. They questioned me at the police station about this. But they already knew she was an illegal alien, because she had already been questioned by them several times prior without my knowledge at school. And she showed them ID. She was 22 years old. Her name was not Napong Don. It was Nap Ki Wing. In the beginning, they let her change her school records. I go to foster care. Guess what was the first word? And I got the transcript of the foster care hearing right here, stating by the state that me and my wife had no grounds of being at that foster care hearing because she was not any relationship to us. And then immediately somebody walked in, another lawyer, telling the state to stop saying that we were the mom and dad, so they could prosecute me. I went to court. I knew the allegations were illegal, and it never happened. That the only people being abused was me, my wife, and my 3 kids by this woman, and my brother-in-law, which was drunk all the time in my home, and my sister-in-law. So my lawyer says if you fight for her, she's coming home. I'm sitting there, no, not until she gets medical help, psychological help. They refused to do that because they didn't want her talking and telling anybody else the truth about her being an illegal alien. They'd been trying to drive me out of my home for years, citing me for everything, saying I needed a site development plan to put up a swing set for my kids. I needed sprinkler systems. I needed a runoff bond for my kids' swing set. They constantly hammered me constantly on Route 1 here, trying to drive me out of my home, which they managed in the last 30 years to drive half of their peoples from their property on Route 1, with passing new zoning laws constantly. They had to convict me. They threw me in jail, saying I was a crazy Vietnam veteran on drugs. I killed dozens of women and children in Vietnam. I was haunted by this. I abused my wife and kids. This was my own lawyer that my sister had told this to. And the judge, believing that Vietnam veterans were all drug addicts, baby killers, etc., agreed and sentenced me to Perkins State Hospital, saying I was criminally insane, that I could not defend myself in court, so he didn't need a plea. But Perkins, thank God, was unavailable, so they sent me to Howard County Detention Center until a bed opened at Perkins State Hospital, where they had examined me. My wife broke into the jail over 30 times in 5 days. She called me over 50 times in 5 days, threatening if they didn't put me on the phone, she was going to come back to jail, and the next time they opened the door for a guard to go through, she would go through. The day they put me in jail out of court, she beat up the judge and sheriffs. All those 5 days I was in jail, she went to the judge and disrupted court, running around the courthouse, disrupting all the court's houses, and the police kept coming to me, you got to control your wife. I'm sitting there, I'm a wife abuser. I'm a child abuser. Can't you control her? And they all say, you're accused of wife abuse? This woman is hell on feet. She has caused, the court hasn't been able to conduct one court trial in a week now until a judge relented to let me out on bail. Then my trial comes about. The police officers tried to commit perjury. They did. All 3 police officers committed outrageous perjury against me. We demanded a Ritchie review of the police files and social service files. The judge, knowing what was in it, because he conspired to railroad me, thinking I needed help as a Vietnam veteran, withheld that she was an illegal alien. She was 22, a totally different person than the daughter we were supposed to have brought here. They helped her get welfare. They helped her get food stamps. They helped her go to school before trial. They promised her citizenship if she could continue the lies they told her to say against me. The first arrest report here said I was arrested in March for a crime I committed in July of '86. The first indictment, she was already in foster care when I was supposed to have abused her. We went to court. The judge threw it out immediately, saying he wanted it expunged. Instead of expunging it, they threw these in the trash and made up new ones that was legitimate looking and put in the old file, case number 14797. This trial, then they reset the trial, re-indicted me on case 15071. We go to court. This is a small 2-bedroom house with a big porch in the back, which I've enclosed since. The only way to get to the one bathroom we had was through the living room. I'm supposed to be molesting her by rubbing against her, feeling her up, while fully clothed, of course, on the living room couch with my 2 nephews and my 3 children running around the house, having to get through the living room to get to the backyard, to the bedroom, to the bathroom, or to the kitchen to get a drink. Back and forth all summer long. When we mentioned this to the young lady, she says, oh no, it didn't happen on the couch, it happened upstairs in one of the bedrooms. Then she changed her story. She didn't remember what I did, where I did it, when I did it. She got caught in so many lies that the state had told her to say against me. She even contradicted some of the lies, saying, I never fondled her breast. I only touched her chest one time. But I never touched her breast. The state was lying about what she said. Then they called in an interpreter, because of course she couldn't speak English, after being in school for 2 years until my trial. The interpreter comes in and tries to tell her what to say in Vietnamese, thinking I didn't understand. I kept objecting to my lawyer about that, but my lawyer couldn't understand. He was putting words in her mouth, and when he supposedly interpreted what she said, she would stand up and blurt out constantly, I didn't say that. Can't you interpret? And the judge kept telling her to shut up and sit down and don't speak another word in English. Let him do the interpreting, which was all fraud. At the end of the case, my lawyer says, if I have another $10,000, I can put on a defense, but there's no way in hell I could lose. If she can't tell where I did it, what I did, when I did it, or anything else, and she changed her story 100 times in a couple hours of questioning until all I can remember is he did bad things to me. That's all she could come down and say at the end. That I shouldn't put on a defense. I'd already paid him $10,000 or $15,000 up to this date, which I didn't have. So he suggested no defense. So he got up and spoke and got everybody bored to death. He was disbarred a month later after my trial from both federal and state court for improper representation of clients. The prosecutor got up with her final argument and stated, under Maryland state law, and I have a transcript of this, you must bring back a verdict of guilty. While she's standing in front of me pointing at me and constantly pointing like this at me, because you did not hear one word saying that this was untrue, that he didn't do bad things to her. Not one person got up here on the stand and said he didn't do something to this poor girl. So under state law, you have to find him guilty. We objected to the judge. The judge refused to put it in his speech to the jury, what the law entailed about guilty and not guilty verdicts. He refused to mention this. It should have been appealable. The jury came back in 5 minutes. Court was postponed, 15-minute recess, after the jury's verdict. I ran outside and happened to run into the head juror, which I wanted to. Scared the hell out of him. I told him, "Sir, I'm not here to hurt you. But why did you convict me?" He says, "We all been speaking for 3 or 4 days now during the trial. There's no way you did anything to this girl. We were all gonna find you not guilty." First off, that was a violation of being a juror. You're not supposed to speak among yourselves until you're given the case at the end, whether I was guilty or not. But I didn't care. I says, "Well, if you were going to find me not guilty, why did you find me guilty?" "Well, the prosecutor said that it was Maryland state law. We had to find you guilty if there was no evidence saying you didn't do something to this poor woman." I'm sitting there, whoa. Well, a couple months later, my attorney was disbarred. He was disbarred during my trial from federal court, but then a couple months later, he was disbarred as a lawyer in the state of Maryland. I started doing appeals. That didn't work. I was turned down for the next year for every appeal I put in, even though I had documented proof of everything. So I sued the state of Maryland, Howard County, the police officers, and the social workers in federal court under civil rights violations. I also sued my wife's family, which forced this young woman to take a DNA test. Because I still wasn't sure she wasn't my wife's daughter, and my wife still thinks this test is a lie. Her family would not have brought an illegal alien here. The DNA test says she's not even a relationship to my family. They said we adopted her, so whether she's a relationship or not, I had a famous police sketch artist, age, her baby photo here that I brought home to be 15 years old, which came, this was a sketch, and this is what she actually looked like. The police sketch artist said even 1,000 plastic surgeries wouldn't have changed the curvature of her ear, her bone structure. This was not the girl we left behind, the baby we left behind as a toddler. During the lawsuit, I got most of the police file. They lost 5 pages, the part about her being illegal. I'm going to redo that. The one thing that shocked me is the police said he only interviewed this woman one time. The social worker was with her every week because I was getting reports she was going out drinking and everything else with a 23-year-old man, another Vietnamese man, partying every weekend instead of being in foster care. The social worker kept saying, "She's not out of her age group, she's fine, and we don't know anything about drinking." So he let her run, supposedly a 15-year-old with a 23-year-old man.
Hey.
Go out, please, and sit down. Go out and sit down. I'm videotaping.
I should have.
I was wondering why the social worker never testified in court. He was an honest man. When I took his deposition, without a lawyer, I became my own lawyer. If you look up here, you can see all kind of law books across here. First trial, advocacy and stuff. If you look up here, there's a lot of federal law books up on the top shelf up here. I got all these transcripts of everything in court, every hearing after court up here. I've spent $100,000. But when I took his request for admissions, interrogatories, and request for documents, he totally blew the police out of the water, showing they completely lied about everything at trial. Then I took the police officer's deposition. I got him so frustrated because I caught him in lie after lie after lie, because that interrogation that the social worker and the police officer did to me at the